All right, strap in, everyone. Today, we're taking a deep, deep dive into the energy transition.
Deeper than we've ever gone before.
Exactly. And we've got this incredible research paper as our guide. The hard stuff. Navigating the physical realities of the energy transition.
It's quite a mouthful, but trust me, it's worth it.
Oh, it totally lives up to the name, doesn't it?
Absolutely. This isn't just some high-level overview. This paper gets into the nuts and bolts, the actual physical challenges of transforming how we produce and use energy.
And that was the first thing that blew my mind. It's not just about, swapping out fossil fuels for renewables.
Right. It's a total system overhaul.
Across, get this, 7 interlinked domains.
7. I mean, talk about interconnectedness.
Power, mobility, industry,
Yeah.
buildings, raw materials, hydrogen, and other new energy carriers.
Oh, and don't forget about carbon reduction strategies.
Right. Each with its own unique set of hurdles.
It's like a giant web.
It really is.
And honestly, some of the connections surprised even me. I've been in this field for a while, but this paper really helped me connect the dots in a new way.
That's what I love about a good research paper. It can really challenge your assumptions. So, for our listeners today, our mission is to extract the key insights from this dense research and, translate them into something understandable.
And relevant.
Yes, relevant. Think of us as your personal research assistants. The ones who've already done the heavy lifting, sifted through all the technical jargon.
Highlighting the most mind-blowing part.
Exactly, the parts that'll make you go, whoa, I never thought about it that way before. And speaking of mind-blowing, the research frames the whole discussion around this idea of performance.
Performance.
Yeah. Now look, the current energy system, for all its flaws, it's a high-performing beast, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's evolved over centuries to deliver energy reliably, efficiently.
Powering our economies, our lifestyles.
Think about it. Long-haul flights. Instant heating and cooling.
The sheer variety of things we produce and consume, it's mind-boggling.
And it's all powered by a system that's optimized for performance.
But, and this is a big but, we can't ignore the cost, the environmental cost.
Right, this dependence on fossil fuels.
More than 85% of global CO2 emissions. And those emissions are driving climate change with potentially catastrophic consequences. It's a stark reminder that the energy transition isn't some, feel-good initiative.
Oh, no, this is an absolute necessity.
We have to change, and we have to change fast.
Absolutely.
But here's the thing. It's not just about swapping out one type of fuel for another. It's about completely transforming how we produce, distribute, and use energy across every single sector.
It's a monumental undertaking.
It is, and that's where those 25 challenges come in.
Oh, those challenges, they really highlight the complexity of this whole transition.
Right. They categorize them into 3 levels.
Level 1, that's the relatively easy stuff, mostly scaling up existing tech.
Level 2, a bit trickier.
Yeah, requiring major progress in areas like infrastructure and resource management.
And then there's level 3, buckle up.
The real brain busters.
The make-or-break challenges that demand fundamental breakthroughs.
Either in technology or in how we use energy.
Okay, so before we get into the specific challenges, I think it's important to really grasp the scale of what we're dealing with here. This energy system, it's so deeply embedded in every aspect of our world.
Serving billions of people.
It's incredibly efficient, adaptable.
Able to meet an enormous range of energy needs.
Think about flipping a light switch.
Or manufacturing a car.
The system has evolved to make these actions reliable, affordable.
Remarkable, really, when you consider the sheer complexity of it all. Over centuries, we've figured out how to extract, transport, convert fossil fuels with incredible efficiency.
And the industries that use this energy, they've evolved right alongside.
Oh, absolutely. Take internal combustion engines and our entire transportation infrastructure. They're perfectly tailored to the properties of gasoline and diesel.
But, and this is the big BUT, we simply cannot ignore the environmental cost.
85% of global CO2 emissions.
And those emissions are driving climate change.
It's a stark reminder that the energy transition isn't just some nice to have.
It's a necessity.
We have to change how we produce and consume energy. There's no way around it.
And those 25 challenges laid out in the research, they show just how complicated and interconnected it all really is.
And that interconnectedness is key why. Tweaking one part of the system inevitably impacts other parts. We can't afford to take a siloed approach.
We need to see the whole picture.
Exactly.
So with that in mind, let's dive into some of the most fascinating challenges from the research. We'll hit a few from each domain to give you a real sense of what we're up against.
Sounds good to me.
Why don't we start with the power sector?
Hmm,
Arguably, it's at the heart of this whole energy transition.
makes sense.
And the very first challenge we encounter is managing renewables variability. A level 3 challenge, mind you.
Yeah, level 3. That means it's going to require some serious innovation to solve this one.
Now, we all know solar and wind power are fantastic clean energy sources,
Abundant, renewable.
but they're intermittent. The sun isn't always shining, and the wind doesn't always blow. That's their thing.
Right, and that creates a massive challenge for our power grids, which are designed for, well, steady and reliable flow of electricity.
So let's say we successfully scale up renewables to provide the majority of our power. Sounds amazing on paper, right?
It does.
What's the problem?
The problem is that the moment a cloud covers a solar farm or the wind dies down, we need a way to make up for that lost generation, like instantly.
Oh, I see.
Otherwise, we're looking at blackouts, major disruptions. Imagine your lights going out in the middle of, I don't know, surgery.
Okay, point taken. So it's not just about generating enough renewable energy, it's about making sure it's there exactly when we need it.
Precisely. And the research highlights just how difficult this is. They use Germany as an example. They project that even with 90% of their power coming from renewables by 2050, there could still be around 75 days each year where generation falls short of demand.
Hold on, 75 days. That's like a quarter of the year?
It's a lot. And it really
Mhm.
underscores the need for solutions like long-duration energy storage or LDES.
LDES, that's things like storing energy as heat in molten salt, right?
Exactly. Or using gravity-based systems.
Like a giant Jenga tower that powers a city.
You got it. But those technologies are still in their early stages. They need to be scaled up massively. It's a huge technological and logistical challenge.
Okay, wow. And that's just one challenge in the power sector.
Oh, there are plenty more where that came from.
The research also points to another level 3 challenge, scaling emerging power systems.
Yes, this is a big one.
Many developing countries, they're striving for both economic growth and de-emissions reduction.
A tough balancing act.
But they face this, like catch-22,
They often like the flexibility of mature systems.
which have things like natural gas plants to balance out those fluctuations from renewables.
Right, they're trying to leapfrog over that fossil fuel heavy path that developed countries took.
Build a clean energy future from the ground up.
It's ambitious, but not impossible.
But definitely not easy.
Definitely not easy. But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about mobility.
Okay.
This sector consumes a massive amount of energy.
Major contributor to emissions.
And one of the biggest challenges they highlight is loading up electric trucks, another level 3 hurdle.
This one gets to the heart of why battery electric technology is so tricky for heavy-duty trucking.
You need a battery big enough to haul a fully loaded semi across long distances. But then the weight of that battery eats into your payload capacity. It's a classic engineering trade-off.
So are we saying electric trucks just aren't viable for long haul?
Not necessarily, but it's going to require some clever solutions. The research highlights that even the most advanced electric trucks today might not be able to meet 20 to 45% of long-haul needs on a single charge because of those weight limits.
Wait, less than half of current long-haul routes could even be covered.
That's what the research suggests. And here's a startling statistic. Less than 1% of trucks on the road today are electric, and almost none of them are used for long haul.
Wow, okay. Those sleek electric semis we see in ads, they're not quite ready to replace those big diesel rigs crisscrossing the country.
Not yet, anyway. But there are some promising solutions on the horizon. One idea is to rethink trucking logistics altogether, maybe by optimizing routes and depot locations to accommodate the shorter range of electric trucks.
Interesting. So instead of trying to make electric trucks act like diesel trucks, we design the system around their strengths. Kind of like, playing to your strengths.
Exactly. Another option is to shift more freight from trucks to rail, which is generally more energy efficient, but that would require significant investments in rail infrastructure.
Okay, we've talked about power. We've talked about mobility. Let's not forget about industry, the heavyweight champion of energy consumption.
And emissions.
And one of their biggest challenges is decarbonizing steel production.
Ah, yes. Challenge number 12, furnacing low-emissions steel. A level 3 challenge if there ever was one.
Yeah, you can't just plug a blast furnace into a solar panel.
Not quite. Steel production is incredibly energy intensive, and it relies heavily on coal.
Both for heat and chemical processes.
And to really emphasize the scale of this challenge, the research points out that there are over 1,400 blast furnaces operating worldwide.
1,400. That's a lot of steel and a lot of carbon emissions.
It is, but there are some promising solutions emerging, like direct reduced iron or DRI with hydrogen.
DR with hydrogen. So instead of using coal, they use hydrogen to reduce iron ore.
Exactly. It's a much cleaner process, but it requires a reliable and affordable supply of green hydrogen, which is still a challenge in itself.
And building all that new infrastructure, right, to
Yeah.
produce and transport the hydrogen.
It's a massive undertaking, but the potential rewards are huge. Imagine a world where steel, this essential material, could be produced with drastically lower emissions.
That would be a game changer. Okay, let's move on to the buildings sector. This might not seem as energy intensive as heavy industry at first glance.
But buildings account for a huge chunk of global energy use, especially for heating and cooling.
Yeah, that's right. And as we transition away from those fossil fuel-based heating systems and move towards electrification, we encounter another big challenge: bracing for winter peaks.
Ah, yes, this is a level 2 challenge, but it has the potential to cause major disruptions.
Break this down for me. What exactly does bracing for winter peaks mean? I'm picturing like a bunch of mountains wearing parkas.
Not quite. Imagine a frigid winter day and everyone needs to crank up their electric heaters simultaneously.
Okay, I can see where this is going.
That sudden massive spike in demand could completely overwhelm the grid.
Leading to blackouts, right?
Exactly. And the research provides a pretty startling example. Electrifying all heating in the U.S. could increase peak demand by a factor of 1.7 nationally.
Whoa. And even higher in some states. So what can we do to prevent the grid from collapsing on a cold day?
Well, there are several strategies we can implement. The research mentions things like smart controls to manage and stagger demand, thermal energy storage to bank heat for use during those peak periods, and dual fuel systems that can use gas as a backup during times of high demand.
So it's about having a multi-pronged approach.
Exactly. We need to be prepared for those extreme weather events, especially as we electrify more and more of our energy needs.
It seems like every step of this energy transition, there's a new challenge waiting around the corner. It's a bit daunting, to be honest.
I understand that feeling, but it's important to remember that these challenges are also opportunities. They're driving innovation, forcing us to rethink how we produce and consume energy, and pushing us towards a more sustainable future. It's a massive undertaking, but it's one that we simply cannot afford to fail.
I'm starting to see the energy transition in a new light, not just as a daunting challenge, but as a massive opportunity to create a better future.
That's the spirit. And to touch on something you mentioned earlier, managing this transition effectively is paramount. We need to ensure that this shift is just and equitable for everyone.
Can you elaborate on that? What does a just and equitable transition look like?
It means making sure the benefits of the energy transition are shared widely and that no one is left behind. It means making sure that workers in the fossil fuel industry have pathways to new jobs in the clean energy sector. We need to support communities that are disproportionately impacted by climate change and pollution, and we need to ensure that everyone has access to affordable, reliable energy, regardless of income or location.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about making sure no one gets left behind in this transition. We need to bring everyone along with us.
You got it. And this requires a holistic approach that takes into account the social and economic impacts of the energy transition, not just the technological aspects.
This is reminding me that the energy transition is about so much more than just reducing emissions. It's about building a more sustainable, equitable, and prosperous future for everyone.
I couldn't have said it better myself. The energy transition is a complex, multifaceted challenge, but it's also an incredible opportunity to create a better world.
I'm ready to move on to the final part of our deep dive. Let's explore some real-world examples of these solutions being put into practice. I always find it so inspiring to see these ideas in action.
Get ready for some real-world inspiration. Welcome back to our deep dive.
Okay, so after that rundown of challenges,
Yeah.
I'm ready for some solutions.
Oh, good.
I'm definitely craving some optimism.
Well, you're in luck. The research doesn't just leave us hanging there.
Okay, good.
It lays out 4 broad categories of solutions
Okay.
that can help us tackle these realities.
All right, so it's the first category.
So first up is continued technological innovation,
Okay.
which might not come as a huge surprise.
Yeah, so keep innovating.
Right. This is all about pushing the boundaries of what's possible in areas like battery technology, electrolyzers for hydrogen production, renewable energy generation, and of course, carbon capture technologies.
So it's like a giant global science fair for the energy sector.
Exactly.
I love it. So what are some of the most promising areas of innovation? What should we be excited about?
Well, I mean, we've already seen some incredible advances, right?
Yeah.
Battery energy density has been steadily increasing, making electric vehicles more practical.
More affordable.
More affordable, right. Solar and wind power have become incredibly cost competitive in many regions.
True.
And new, more efficient carbon capture technologies are emerging all the time.
I think that's a really important point that like people don't always connect. Like cost competitiveness drives adoption.
Absolutely.
So that's one of the things that I think we should be excited about is that renewables are becoming more and more cost competitive with fossil fuels.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So is it just throwing money at the problem or is there more to it?
It's more than just throwing money at it.
Okay.
It's about creating the right conditions for those breakthroughs to happen.
Okay.
So attracting the talent, supporting startups, encouraging collaboration between research institutions and private companies.
Okay, that's innovation and that's like a long game, right?
Yeah.
So what about the short term?
Well, the second category is what the research calls coupling low and high emission systems.
Okay, what does that mean?
It's a more pragmatic approach.
Okay.
Focuses on finding ways to integrate the new with the old, at least in the short term.
So instead of tearing down everything and starting from scratch,
right,
we make the old and new systems work together.
Yeah, build bridges,
All right, give me an example.
So for instance, natural gas power plants.
Okay.
They're generally more flexible than coal plants.
Yeah.
They can provide backup power when renewable energy generation dips. We can also transition to dual fuel heating systems.
Okay, so dual fuel, so like gas and electric.
Yeah.
Using efficient heat pumps as the primary source and gas as a backup on those super cold days.
So it's kind of like a stepping stone approach.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about being strategic and recognizing that this transition isn't going to happen overnight.
Yeah. No magic wand.
Right. No magic wand.
Okay. So what's the third solution category? What else can we do?
So the third one is all about adapting use cases.
Okay. I like that.
This is where things get really interesting because it's about rethinking how we use energy.
Okay.
Designing systems that are inherently more efficient and less carbon intensive.
So it's not just about swapping out technologies.
No.
It's about challenging our assumptions about how things are done.
Right.
And finding smarter ways to use energy.
It's about working smarter, not harder, like you said earlier.
Exactly. Okay, I'm with you. Give me an example.
So remember that challenge of electrifying long-haul trucking?
Well, instead of trying to force electric trucks to fit into the existing diesel-based system, we redesigned the system to play to the strength of electric trucks.
Right. So we designed the system for electric trucks.
Exactly.
Not try to force them into our old.
Right.
Okay, love it.
Yeah.
What's that fourth category, that fourth and final?
So the fourth category is often overlooked.
Okay.
But it's absolutely crucial.
Okay.
And it's all about managing the transition.
Okay.
We need to acknowledge that this massive shift isn't going to happen magically overnight.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This is a complex, multi-decade process
Right.
that requires careful planning, coordination, and investment.
Okay.
So we need to develop clear roadmaps.
Ambitious but achievable goals.
Exactly.
Incentives.
Right.
Streamlined permitting processes.
Yep. All of that.
Workforce development.
Absolutely. A just and equitable transition
For all stakeholders.
for everyone involved.
Okay, so it sounds like we've got these four broad categories of solutions. But it's clear there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Absolutely not.
We need a mix, right?
We need a portfolio approach, like you said.
Okay.
It's about finding the right combination
Okay.
of innovations, adaptations, and policy measures for each specific situation.
Okay, so let's say I'm just an average person listening.
Yeah.
And I want to be part of this transition, right?
Yeah.
I want to help solve these problems.
Absolutely.
I'm not a scientist or engineer. I'm not a policymaker.
Right.
What can I do?
I think that's a fantastic question, and it's one that a lot of people are asking.
Yeah.
The truth is, everyone has a role to play,
Okay.
no matter how big or small.
So it's not just about the big sweeping actions.
No, it's the individual choices that we make every day.
So like what? Give me some examples.
Well, start by looking at your own energy consumption habits.
Okay.
At home, at work.
Okay.
Are there ways you can reduce your energy use?
Okay.
Can you switch to more energy efficient appliances?
LED light bulbs.
LED light bulbs, exactly.
Okay.
Can you explore renewable energy options like solar panels for your home?
Okay, so it's about individual actions,
Yeah.
but it's also about using our voices
Absolutely.
to advocate for bigger change.
Yeah, use your voice to support policies that promote clean energy and energy efficiency.
Okay?
Talk to your friends, your family about the energy transition.
Spread the word.
Yeah, spread the word.
Okay.
Support businesses that are adopting sustainable practices.
So it's about those individual actions, but it's also about using that collective voice to create demand for change.
Exactly. The energy transition isn't something that's happening to us. It's something we're all actively building together.
Yeah, love it. So now I'm starting to see the energy transition in a new light,
Yeah.
not just as this daunting challenge, but also this massive opportunity
Right.
to create a better future.
And to touch on something you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
that a just and equitable transition for everyone is essential.
Yeah, what does that look like in practice?
It means making sure that the benefits of this transition are shared widely, that no one is left behind.
Okay.
So ensuring workers in the fossil fuel industry have pathways to new jobs.
In the clean energy sector.
Exactly. We need to support communities that are disproportionately impacted by climate change, pollution,
And we need to ensure that everyone has access to affordable, reliable energy
regardless of their income
or location.
or where they live.
Okay.
So this requires a holistic approach that takes into account the social and economic impacts,
Not just the technologies.
not just the technology.
Yeah.
It's about people.
This is reminding me that the energy transition, it's about so much more than just reducing emissions, right?
It is.
It's about building a better world, a more sustainable world, more equitable.
Absolutely. The energy transition is a complex, multifaceted challenge, but it's also this incredible opportunity to create a better world, like you said.
I'm ready to move on to the final part of our deep dive.
Let's do it.
Let's explore some real-world examples of these solutions in action.
All right, get ready for some inspiration.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've gone through all those mind-boggling challenges. We've unpacked potential solutions.
And now we get to see those solutions in action.
In the real world, this is my favorite part, honestly.
Me too. Theory is important, but there's nothing like seeing these innovations actually happening right now.
So let's start with an example from the power sector.
Okay.
We talked about long-duration energy storage being key to managing those unpredictable renewables.
Right.
And there's this company in Switzerland that's doing something truly groundbreaking.
Energy Vault, you mean?
Yeah, Energy Vault. They've taken the concept of pumped hydro
Yeah.
and completely reinvented it.
No mountains or reservoirs required.
Hold on, how do they do pumped hydro without water and giant hills?
It's pretty ingenious, actually.
Okay.
They use these massive concrete blocks stacked in a tower.
Okay.
And when there's excess energy on the grid, they use that energy to lift the blocks high up in the tower. And then when energy is needed, they slowly lower the blocks, generating electricity as they descend.
It's like a giant Jenga tower that powers cities.
It's a pretty amazing visual.
So besides the cool factor, what are the advantages of this system?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's incredibly durable.
Okay.
They can build these towers pretty much anywhere.
Oh, so they're not limited by geography like traditional pumped hydro.
Exactly.
Okay, that's really cool.
Plus, they're using recycled materials for the concrete blocks, which is an added bonus.
Okay, so that's a great example from the power sector.
Yeah.
But I want to shift gears to heavy-duty trucking, an area where we discussed some pretty serious challenges with electrification.
Right. The weight of the batteries.
Yeah, the payload range trade-off.
Exactly.
So, are there any companies actually making headway with zero-emission trucks? Or is that all just hype?
Oh, there are some really innovative companies out there tackling this challenge.
Okay, good.
And it's not just battery electric trucks making progress. In fact, there's this one company that's tackling long-haul routes with a totally different approach.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
This company, called Einride, has developed these autonomous electric trucks.
Autonomous.
Yep, self-driving.
Whoa.
They're designed to be more like self-driving pods than traditional trucks.
Electric pods. That sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
It kind of is. They're super sleek, aerodynamic, and totally electric.
Okay, so how do they work?
Well, they're designed for specific routes, often between like warehouses or ports.
Okay.
And they operate within this controlled environment, relying on sensors and AI to navigate safely.
Okay.
And because they're electric and self-driving, they can operate 24/7.
So they're not limited by human drivers who need to sleep and take breaks.
Exactly, which significantly increases efficiency.
So it's not just about swapping out the engine. They're rethinking the whole concept of trucking.
Absolutely.
What are some of the potential benefits of this kind of system, besides obviously reducing emissions?
Well, I mean, for one, these autonomous pods can significantly improve road safety.
Oh, yeah, because human error is taken out of the equation.
Exactly. They can also help reduce traffic congestion
Hi.
and even address driver shortages.
Which is a growing problem, especially here in the U.S.
Yeah, big time.
Okay, that's amazing. Solving multiple problems with one innovative solution.
It's pretty cool.
Okay, so I want to talk about the industrial sector, the decarbonization of steel.
Yeah, one of the toughest nuts to crack.
Exactly. We talked about H2 green steel in Sweden, but are there other companies making steel without all the carbon emissions?
Absolutely. There's this company, Boston Metal.
Boston Metal. Okay, what's their secret sauce?
They've developed this technology called molten oxide electrolysis.
Molten oxide electrolysis.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful.
Okay.
But basically, it uses electricity to extract iron from iron ore.
So no coal involved.
Nope.
Okay, so they're making steel with electricity. How does that even work?
Well, it's a bit technical, but essentially they dissolve iron ore in this molten oxide bath and then pass an electric current through it,
Okay.
causing the iron to separate out.
So it's like, I don't know, like electroplating, but on a massive scale.
You got it. And they can power this entire process with renewable energy, so you get truly green steel.
This is so cool. It's like they've cracked the code on clean steelmaking.
It's a pretty big deal.
It's really inspiring to see companies taking these bold steps and proving that even the toughest challenges can be overcome.
And that's a really important message for our listeners.
Yeah.
It's not about waiting for someone else to solve this problem. It's about each of us taking action, right?
Like we talked about in the last segment, we all have a role to play.
Whether it's switching to LED light bulbs at home, advocating for clean energy policies in our communities, or supporting companies that are leading the charge towards sustainability.
We can all be energy pioneers in our own way.
Exactly.
Well, this has been an incredible journey, a deep, deep dive into the energy transition.
It really...
And I want to thank you for being such a fantastic guide. It's been truly eye-opening.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk about this stuff, and I hope we've inspired our listeners to learn more and get involved.
And to our listeners, if you want to keep exploring, we encourage you to check out the full research paper, the hard stuff. It's got even more insights than we could cover today.
And if you want to continue exploring with us, we'll be back soon with another deep dive into a completely different topic.
So until then, keep those curious minds engaged. And remember, the future of energy is in our hands.
Thanks for joining us
On the Deep Dive.